In the 1990s, the most powerful Cuban exile group was the group called the Cuban American National Foundation, which is still very much around. It had been founded in the 1980s, early 1980s, with help from the Reagan administration. It was modeled on the Israeli lobby, and it turned out, if you ask people who know about these things, to have been more successful. They had access to every president since Reagan, through Clinton, the Bushes, and even to Obama. They funded the elections of American senators and congressmen. They sponsored legislation. Despite Obama's modest loosening of travel restrictions to Cuba, there's been no attempt to end the 50-year-plus failed embargo, and there's good reason for that. It's very difficult to end, thanks in part to legislation, the Helms-Burton Act, which was written by the Cuban American National Foundation. But the Cuban American National Foundation was not just a lobby group. In 1992, at a meeting in Naples, Florida, the board of the Cuban American National Foundation authorized the group to set up a secret paramilitary. They raised more than $1 million to help finance the purchase of arms and equipment for their paramilitary. They even included a high-speed yacht that was supposed to ferry their leader, Jorge Mascanosa, back to Cuba at the appropriate post-revolutionary moment to assume his rightful place as the president of a new and democratic Cuba. This paramilitary began to finance various terrorist attacks against Cuba, including the 1997 Havana hotel bombings. How do we know this? We know this because the Cubans had an agent, and agents, I assume, inside the Cuban American National Foundation. One of them was a guy named Percy Alvarado. He wasn't a member of the Cuban Five, but he was operating at around the same time, doing roughly the same thing. He was a Cuban citizen, but he had been born in Guatemala, so he had a Guatemalan passport, which allowed him easy travel to and from the United States. His cover story was that he was a good capitalist. He was a kind of mule. He would carry back to Cuba from the United States money and goods that Cuban exiles wanted to send back to their families in Cuba for a price, for a cut of that. As a result of all of that, he was recruited by the Cuban American National Foundation to set up a clandestine cell to undertake terrorist actions inside Cuba. At one point, he traveled to Guatemala City, where he was trained to assemble a bomb that he was supposed to bring into Cuba and set off at the Tropicana Club, the famous nightclub in Havana. We know this because Alvarado ended up testifying about his role during the 1999 trial of some mercenaries who had been involved in those hotel bombings. When the Cubans issued a statement about the trial and Alvarado's testimony, the Cuban American National Foundation, of course, denied any involvement whatsoever. The U.S. government denied that the Cuban American National Foundation was involved. Newspapers described it as more Cuban propaganda, more of the same stuff. Until 2006, when the Cuban version of events was confirmed in that most American way, a lawsuit. It was a lawsuit filed by a disaffected member of the board of the Cuban American National Foundation who didn't get repaid for the money he put up so that they could finance the paramilitary. His affidavit, his lawsuit confirmed everything that the Cubans had said, including the dates of the meetings where this paramilitary was set up and who was going to be designated to lead it.